Hello and welcome to Downtown. I'm your host, Robbie Haig. Thank you for being with us. And today I'm talking with Kim Corben, who is the Executive Director of the Plymouth Philharmonic in Plymouth. And I thank you for spending time with us, Kim.
Thank you for having me on, Robbie.
My pleasure, as always. So you have, how long have you been dealing with the Plymouth Philharmonic?
I've been Executive Director for the Phil for 4 years now, 4 wonderful years.
Yeah.
I started in July of 2014 and we're going on a new season and starting in September, and it's all very exciting.
Right. Well, it is totally exciting. And in the years that I've been associated with you, there are so many questions. I hope I can remember all of them today. So, key things, how did you ever get to do this sort of thing?
Well, it's a funny story, and it goes way back.
Okay.
When I was just 16 years old, I was an usher in Milwaukee at the Performing Arts Center, where they did a whole variety of shows pretty much 7 days a week. And it was a paid position. It was my very first job, and that's where I fell in love with this business. Everybody always thinks that I'm in it because I'm a musician. I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
But I appreciate good music. I've seen so many great artists over the years.
Right.
But that very first job kind of hooked me into it. When I was in my early 20s, I moved out to Massachusetts and worked at the North Shore Music Theater as their box office manager. They actually hired me and moved me out here to do that job. And I was 22 years old.
What an opportunity.
It was great. Then life kind of happened. I met my husband through his mother worked for me at the music theater.
Oh, wow.
And we got married and had 2 kids and stayed home with them for 10 years. And then I worked in fundraising at Plymouth Plantation for 9 years. And then after that, my next job was as Director of Concert Operations at the Cape Cod Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, very good.
And when I went to do that job, it was just like coming home. It was so natural. I felt like this is what I was really meant to do.
Wonderful.
At that point, my kids were in school full-time. I had more time to be able to devote to my job.
Sure.
And pretty much learned every aspect of the job.
Excellent.
And then from there, I came to the Plymouth Philharmonic.
Very good. There are a lot of musicians involved in the Philharmonic.
Yeah, a concert can have anywhere from 45 musicians to sometimes up to 75 musicians, depending upon the piece and the instrumentation. Some call for a larger horn section, so you hire more musicians that do that. And the Phil has a group of core musicians, our contract musicians, that do the majority of our concerts. Of course, there's always can be a conflict, but depending, like I said, on the size of the orchestra, that dictates how many we have to hire for each one. Oh. So we fill in with subs that have played with us before. We have a long list of people that play with us when we have a need for that. There's not a saxophone on every concert.
Okay.
So if we need a saxophone for a particular concert, we hire a sub to do that.
So do you have a listing of
We do. We have a personnel manager who is a musician, and she hires all of the musicians for each concert based on people we've worked with in the past and how our conductor has, auditioned and approved each of those musicians. And we're very, very lucky because in Boston there are the best music schools, some of the best music schools in the country, and there are several of them. Yeah. So they turn out very good musicians.
Very good.
So we have a huge pool of really great musicians. So our musicians come anywhere from Boston to Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island.
Really?
They're not all Plymouth musicians. There are a few from Plymouth,
Yeah.
but not very many of them.
Wow.
And because we don't do all, that many concerts, they all do something else.
Okay.
They may perform with another orchestra. We have a musician who's concertmaster in Portland, Maine. We have musicians that play with the Vermont Symphony,
Yeah.
Rhode Island, New Bedford. Some of them teach music lessons, either privately or in a music school, but they all earn their living through music. They are all professional musicians.
Okay. So they are paid musicians.
They are paid
at the
musicians,
Philharmonic.
absolutely.
I think not a great number of people even think about that.
Right, and that's why it costs so much money for us to produce a concert, because if you think about that, there are however many musicians, 50 for a classical concert, and 55 musicians for rehearsals and for concerts.
Right.
That brings up the payroll quite a
Sure.
bit, but you're getting a professional orchestra. Nobody's a volunteer.
Yeah. So when you're paying, does the cost of the ticket pay all of these musicians?
Unfortunately, it does not.
So music is most important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And the cost, even if we sold out every single concert, it would not cover all the costs it takes to produce a concert.
Really?
So for a classical concert, for example, there's usually a larger orchestra, and since the pieces are more complicated, there's 2 additional rehearsals. And we do these concerts, the rehearsals are the week of the concert. Classical concerts have 3 rehearsals, Pop's concerts only 1.
Wow.
So they pull these beautiful concerts together in a very limited number of rehearsals.
Wow.
But, and of course they get paid for those rehearsals as well. So for a Pop's concert where we have a smaller orchestra and only 1 rehearsal, for example, our Spring Pops last year, with all the other costs involved in producing the concert, even though that was a sold out concert with a smaller orchestra with only 1 rehearsal, only $3,000 was the profit that could go back into the orchestra to pay for that concert. So the classical concerts, they're not covered by the ticket prices at all. It's covered by very generous donors that make up that difference. And that's
So that would compensate.
exactly. Most of my time is spent on fundraising and sponsorships and things like that. And we're very lucky to have a great community of music lovers here that support our orchestra. And we couldn't do it without it.
Wow.
We couldn't do it without them.
And of course, the volunteers are ushers.
Yes.
And then some.
And that's how we met.
Yes.
The first time I met you, I roped you in to take charge of our ushers, and we've been great friends ever
You
since.
permitted me to do it.
But our ushers come from all over, mostly Plymouth, but all over Plymouth. They're not the same for every concert, as you know. We have about 35, is that right? 35 per concert. Mm-hmm. And they come and they seat our patrons, and they're our ambassadors, because a lot of times that's the only people that our audience goers actually meet.
True.
And
you make them feel that way too, like they're the first line of
they
love
absolutely
for
are.
the concert.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And without them, we wouldn't have everybody in their seats.
Right. And
then you get to enjoy the concert. The ushers
absolutely
love that.
Absolutely. But they are so happy to be there, and that just shines through when
It does.
When the patrons are coming in.
Yeah, it does.
So how do you go about? Stephen Karyadanis, of course, is
He's our music director and conductor.
Yes. And how do you two work together with, like, the new program is coming up in September? How do you get to
How do we get to the point where we can put on a concert?
Yes.
Well, it all starts with Stephen.
Yeah.
And although he solicits input from our board members and are, taking a lot of different things into account, he puts together what the program's going to be for the season.
Okay.
And he has to balance things like, which pieces on the program use the same amount of can be done with the same size orchestra, so you're not doing a piece that calls for a big orchestra and then they don't do anything the rest of it. So he's got to balance all of those things to come up with a great program. And then, of course, that the music goes together, that it shows off our orchestra in the best light, that it's what our audience wants to hear.
Yeah.
And he puts together a program, and in the fall of the previous year, he's already presenting that program to the board of directors. And he plays clips, and he talks about how he chose each piece and who he's wants to have as a guest artist, and all those different things. And he presents that program for approval. And then I just put together the budget to see if we can make that work.
Very good.
And then we go from there.
Very good. So if it's one thing to gather the appropriate number of musicians, but then there are guest artists that come into the equation too.
Right. Again, because we're in such a great area, there are a lot of really, really talented musicians out there as guest artists. And Stephen also wears the hat of conductor at the New England Conservatory for one of their youth orchestras.
Very
and he
nice.
has a lot of connections through there. Yeah. But there are also just word of mouth and other ways to, if he hears about a really wonderful musician that we can bring on as a soloist, and we book them and have them come for the concerts.
And I'm very impressed by the fact that the school kids are incorporated into this wonderful music.
We always say that we're a fully professional orchestra, but we're here for our community. Mm-hmm. So on our holiday pops, we always incorporate a children's chorus, which is one of the most popular parts of the concert. People at Christmas time love to hear those beautiful children's voices. And they train hard to do that.
There's a great number of them in that hall. Yeah.
Yeah, they train hard for that, and it's a highlight for them. Their families all come to the concert. It's different every year. Yeah. It's just a really wonderful experience to be able to include those kids. We also do a family concert that includes a children's chorus, and that's an even bigger chorus. That's about 100 kids in that chorus. And we every other year do a concert with the South Shore Conservatory Youth Orchestra as a side-by-side. So they sit next to our musicians and play on a piece.
What a thrill.
Right, and the rehearsals kind of, for me, it's really neat to see them rehearsing together, because even the pieces that they're not playing on, they stay there for that rehearsal and they get to learn from a professional. And it shows them that you can make a living through music.
Right.
It's just really thrilling to be able to have that partnership with them as well.
And then you also have the musicians lined up around the periphery, and the kids are permitted to...
For the family concert, yes. Absolutely. There's
play with the
instrument demonstration.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people say they really let them use their instrument, and they do. Some of them have a practice instrument they'll use for that, but they let them get right up there, blow in the tuba, string, bow the violin or the bass, and it really has an effect on what instrument those kids choose. Because sometimes they only know the main ones, and they don't know what a bassoon does, or a clarinet. So it's really a lot of fun because they can try them all. Of course, percussion is the most popular.
Yes.
Everybody likes to bang on things.
That's right. And the coming up this season, what is your, I'll say topic, but I don't mean topic,
our brand for the season?
Your branding for the season.
This season, it's all about adding color. And you know, if you sit through an orchestra rehearsal, you hear the conductor talk about adding color to a particular piece. Adding color to your music adds color to your life. We're bringing color into just into our marketing materials and how we describe what we're doing. We like to brand each season differently, and I have a wonderful marketing manager, Holly Wenger, and Holly and our graphic designer, Lou Barnacle, who lives on the Cape. I've been working with her for about 7 years now. Oh. The three of us sit down at the beginning of the season, and you know, usually Holly has a couple ideas she's come up with ahead of time, and we kind of bat them around. Yeah. And by the time we walk out, it's usually a completely different idea, but Lou adds what she could do to it, and then we wait. Huh. And then Lou comes up with her sketches, and usually there are some choices and different things, and she's so wonderful that she never disappoints me. You know, you can't wait to see what she's come up with, and it's not always the direction we thought we were going in.
Okay.
But last year's season with the car, I mean, that was so much fun.
It was fun, and because it was tangible. You could bring it to different places.
Right, and it was the cardboard cutout of the car. Yeah. Not cardboard, it was actually plastic. But you could go into the car stand behind it, next to Stephen, who was driving that car, and have your picture taken and post it on Instagram. And it's just a fun way to interact with. Really
fun. And then, of course, the pictures of Liszt and
right. All the composers in the season brochure. All the composers were in the car with Stephen. Yeah. The composers on that season, which is really. Yeah. And what we're looking to do is show people that the orchestra can be fun. Yes. It's approachable. You don't have to know about classical music to enjoy a classical concert. Right. You know, we have very interesting programming, and it's for everybody.
It is.
And all ages.
And all ages, very good. And that's very exciting about being in Memorial Hall at the times of your programs. To see young people come in is
right. We have really awesome. really diverse audience. Right. Really diverse. We have young professionals. We have high school kids. We have older folks that are retired. We just have all ages, and the same programs appeal to the same people.
Yes, and Stephen does go about in the community publicizing and playing in different.
He's been leading this orchestra for 25 seasons. This is his 25th season. And although he lives in Boston, he always says his bed is in Boston, but his heart is in Plymouth. And he spends a lot of time here. He is absolutely a member of the community, even though he doesn't live here.
Yeah. And he even comes down for programs that we have with the ushers. He comes down and talks with them. I mean, that's exemplary.
Yes, and he talks with our audience members. And after every concert, if you want to hang around, you can come down to the floor and he'll come back out and chat with you. Yeah. If you have a question, why did you do this? Or how did you come up with that? Just go down on the main floor and wait for him, and he will come out and answer your questions and say hello. And that's what you don't get with a big orchestra. Right. A Boston orchestra. It's really wonderful that he has that relationship with the members of our community.
And there's also a small fee you can pay to be part of the pre-program.
Right. We have cocktail parties with every concert. Yes. Because whenever you go to see the symphony, it's a party. Yes. So they're at different places, and we do that intentionally so people have an opportunity to see some different venues in Plymouth. Our opening night is always at Pilgrim Hall Museum, and that's always a great one. Right. It starts at 6 o'clock, and then you can go there. There's appetizers at a cash bar, and you can talk to other music lovers. You can Stephen only can appear there for a short time because he has other duties that night, but he does pop in every night,
Yeah.
everyone, and says hello.
Yeah.
And where he goes from there is the pre-concert talks.
Right.
So he goes back to the hall for a pre-concert talk where he addresses anyone who wants to come early. In the front of the stage, they usually sit on the floor in those floor seats, and addresses any questions they might have, talks about the pieces they're going to hear that night, and he always has like some nugget of information that's like,
Right.
oh, I'm going to have to listen for that.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot more fun.
Right. And he's extremely enthusiastic when he's giving these talks.
Yeah, you can tell that he loves the music that he programs.
Absolutely.
And the programs wouldn't be the same without that. You have to bring that joy and that enthusiasm to every single concert. And he certainly does.
And he also goes out in the community. I've seen him at the Council on Aging.
Right. He's
And
Council on Aging. He does Meet the Maestro program at the library. He does all sorts of things within the community, and you can find out about all those things on our website, which is plymouthphil.org. Very
Excellent.
easy, plymouthphil.org.
excellent. And the people in the community, when he's teaching them about, he actually teaches them about the music and what the music means,
Yeah.
which I don't know
Yeah.
that much about.
And you don't have to. That's the really great thing. Last year he did a great courses. There was a great courses class at Pine Hills, and and they went to learn about classical music. So I hadn't been to their class, but it's a program that's all designed, and they learn all about these different pieces. And then they went to one of our concerts, and they went to the pre-concert talk. So these people had like much deeper questions,
Right.
but they might be sitting next to someone like me who really doesn't or didn't know that much about classical music, who may have a different kind of question, but they're all pertinent and they're all welcome.
And it's so in-depth, or it can be so
It can
in-depth.
be.
Yes.
Yes,
But I enjoy just sitting
absolutely.
there and listening, not knowing what I'm listening to, but
Yeah,
still
I usually go to the rehearsals, and I've been in this business for a while now, so I've heard a lot of things. But even when I go to he talks about the music, it's like, oh, I never noticed that before. I'm going to have to listen for that, and that's what I kind of
Very
like
good.
about it. It's like, oh, that does make sense, So it's always interesting, and every time you listen to a piece, you get something different out of it.
Sure.
So
So
it's
this
very
is
fun.
Stephen's 25th season.
It is.
And does he have something unique for this season that you might want to mention?
Actually, I'll give you guys a big scoop, because we
Okay.
haven't announced this yet.
Oh.
But and I haven't talked to you about it either. But in place of our fundraising gala this year, in honor of Stephen's 25th, we are going to present a fundraising concert. And it's going to be a concert without orchestra, because the goal of it is to raise money for the orchestra. So
Very
it's a lot less
interesting.
expensive to pay the musician, a 5-piece band that's with these musicians. And the concert's going to be performed by Will and Anthony Nunziato, who were our guest artists
Yes,
at
they
the
were
Spring Pops concert.
fantastic.
They were so popular. And after the concert, people were already saying, when are you going to bring them back? When are you going to bring them
They
back?
were good.
So this is going to be their solo show. And as I said, it's to raise money for the orchestra, but the seats in the seats on the floor, the table seating, will be at premium sponsorship prices.
Oh, okay.
But the seats in the mezzanine and the balcony will be the same pricing that we have for our other concerts. So everyone can come to the celebration of Stephen.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, we wanted to open that up to everybody. We didn't, our gala at $125 a ticket, not everybody can go to that.
Yeah.
This allows us to have over 1,000 people involved at all levels.
Very
And
good.
one thing that's really wonderful about that is we have a sponsor who's underwriting the entire cost of the concert.
Oh my goodness.
So it will be all money to go straight to the orchestra, to our programs and our operations.
How fantastic.
And that's going to be on February 2nd this year.
Ah, very good. So that's added
That's
to
an
all
added,
of the.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll be starting to promote that. But like I said, it was just decided.
Well, I thank you for that, Kim. That's really, really, really good. And believe it or not, we're just about out of time. So if it,
That
tell
goes
me,
fast.
It does go fast. Well, you have so much to give to us that the name of the program this year again is Colors.
Add some color.
Add some color,
Uh,
and it's beginning in September.
Beginning at the end of September, September 29th.
Yeah, they can go online and find
And you
all
can go
of the
online
other
at
dates.
plymouthphil.org and find all the dates.
And the tickets are now on sale at the Philharmonic.
They are. You can buy them online. You can buy them through over the phone through our box office. And if you do it that way, you save on the handling fees.
Excellent. I thank you so very, very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's truly interesting. And I thank you out there for being here. This is your host, Robbie Haig, for Downtown, and we hope to see you again real soon.